Good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 7th of March. And the SNC-Lavalin, Justin Trudeau, Jodi Wilson Raybould plot just keeps getting thicker and thicker by the day. But first, let me welcome back all of my regular visitors and any new visitors that might be coming to this channel for the first time. And I hope you enjoy the information and some of the insights. Okay, so this is an incredible story about the Liberal government, and I should say up front that I'm not actually picking on the Liberal government, because this is something that goes on all the time with all parties, and it's pretty disgraceful because the government is charged with basically regulating to try and create a level playing field, and when corruption starts entering into that, it really is bad news for the members of public. So, brief background. SNC-Lavalin have been charged with bribery in Libya with Gaddafi's son, who was feted when he came to Canada to try and get some government building and construction contracts in Libya. And so if they were prosecuted, they would lose the opportunity to tender on contracts, government contracts in Canada for approximately 10 years. And so they were seeking what is called a deferred prosecution, which would lead to probably a strong fine and a few bad words, but that would be about it. The company could continue building in Canada. And as it turns out, the SNC-Lavalin company were the biggest lobbyists to get this deferred prosecution legislation pushed through. So anyway, there was panic in the PMOs, that's the Prime Minister's office, because there was going to be a loss of jobs supposedly. The company might leave the province of Quebec, which just happens to be in the riding of Justin Trudeau. And so the head of prosecutions had decided that there would be no deferred prosecution for SNC-Lavalin, and so the PMO's office decided to try and lean on Jodi Wilson Raybould, who is the Justice Minister and the Attorney General. And I mean, I must remind you here that the Attorney General is the absolute head of the legal part of the government. It should be arm's length from any political interference. And so for the Prime Minister's office to try and get Jodi Wilson Raybould to change her mind was clearly over the line. So Jodi Wilson Raybould gave her testimony saying that she was under continuous pressure after she'd made it very, very clear to the Prime Minister and the Clerk of the Privy Council, Michael Wernick, that her mind was made up and she would not change it. And of course the argument that's been coming back is that the situation is always open until the actual verdict of guilty or not guilty has been decided, but in case there was any new evidence. However, Gerald Butts and Michael Wernick, or the PMO, or Bill Monod, have not stated that there was any new evidence whatsoever, but continued to lobby Jodi Wilson Raybould long after she had said that her mind was made up. So anyway, they brought Michael Wernick back to rebut some of the things that Jodi Wilson Raybould had said, and of course Gerald Butts, who was the Principal Secretary of Justin Trudeau, testified. And throughout all of the testimony of both of them, there was this continual coded way of saying, "I think you're lying." And it sounds a lot like this.
2018, we had a number of comments made by Madam Justice Wilson Raybould about yourself, and I want to give you the opportunity to refute them. Number one, you're quoted as saying, "I think he is going to find a way," speaking about the Prime Minister, "to get it done one way or the other. So he is in that kind of mood, and I wanted you to be aware of it," close quote. Did you say that? Or words approximating that?
I do not have an independent recollection of the event. I did not wear a wire, record the conversation, or take extemporaneous notes.
So you wouldn't have stuck in your mind words like that?
That is not my recollection of the conversation.
Then you
Work on September 17th, 2018. In your presence, the Prime Minister told the Attorney General that if there was no deferred prosecution agreement, that SNC will move from Montreal. Did the Prime Minister know at the time that a financing agreement with the Caisse de dépôt made it impossible for SNC to move its headquarters before the year 2024? Yes or no?
That is not my recollection of what the Prime Minister said.
So he did not say that the SNC will move from Montreal if it does not get a deferred prosecution agreement.
That's not my recollection of what he said. That is not my recollection of what I said.
Are you certain that you did not say it?
That is not my recollection of what I said. If I could explain, if you're interested in the answer.
Or like this.
The second and final meeting I had on the file was with Jessica Prince, the Minister's Chief of Staff, and Katie Telford. There was no urgency to attend that meeting. I remember that meeting very, very differently than the account given last week. I am fully aware that two people can experience the same event differently.
And it's kind of interesting that, when we go back to the groping case that Justin Trudeau was involved in BC when he was a young man in his early 20s, I believe, he says basically exactly the same thing. Take a listen.
So I'm responsible for my side of the interaction, which certainly, as I said, I don't feel was in any way untoward. But at the same time, this lesson that we are learning and I'll be blunt about it, often a man experiences an interaction as being benign or not inappropriate, and a woman, particularly in a professional context, can experience it differently, and we have to respect that.
This is code for you're lying. But they won't come right out and say it. And all through the testimony, there was this kind of shallow, empty rebuttal that really didn't say anything. They really just kept changing the subject. The issue of jobs kept coming up repeatedly. And yet, of course, these jobs are government contracts. Okay, these are bridges and power stations and waterways, whatever it is. These are government contracts. And they're not going to go away. They would just go to another company. And of course, I'm sure the government has many smaller engineering companies that could take on some parts of these contracts. These could be divided up. They could get several companies to work together. But when you have a behemoth like SNC-Lavalin, who can wade in and, as we found out, has direct connection to the Prime Minister's office and can lobby the Prime Minister's office and bribe their way through deals and contracts, this is not a level playing field. And so those jobs would not be lost, they would just go to other engineering companies. And I might point out here something that hasn't been said. We're sort of looking at this as if SNC-Lavalin is some kind of golden child and that butter wouldn't melt in their mouth. However, there have been many bribery allegations against SNC-Lavalin. Okay, I've made a little bit of a list here. Okay, from 1995 to 2008 there was the Kerala Dam in India, and there were several government officials were fired. However, no charges were laid. In 2000, the Jacques Cartier Bridge, there was a big bribery scandal about that. No charges laid. Libya in 2011, of course, that's what this particular case is about. And also McGill University, and it was called the Arthur Porter kickback scandal. And this was $22 million passing hands under the guise of consultancy fees. And then, of course, there was the Padma Bridge in Bangladesh. And again, there was bribery charges pending with that, but they all got dropped. Some government officials got fired. But this has become an absolute standard operating procedure with SNC-Lavalin. And so we're not dealing with a first-time offender here, and it's not just overseas, it's been in Canada as well. So this company has entirely discredited itself in the face of all Canadians and should suffer the consequences for trying to put their thumb on the scale. The rule of law should have no favourites. For anybody who's putting their thumb on the scale or trying to bribe their way or lobby government just because they're the biggest kid on the block is not fair play. And, I'm sure that SNC-Lavalin is big enough that there are certain contracts that just couldn't be undertaken by a company any smaller than SNC-Lavalin. So it really doesn't need to bribe its way into business either. But the absolutely unbelievable way the government has dealt with this, and so basically they've called Jodi Wilson Raybould a liar, and that she experienced things differently, and that she heard things differently. But of course, the absolute bombshell that compounded Jodi Wilson Raybould was Jane Philpott resigning from cabinet. Now, this is a senior cabinet member, and of course she is the Treasury Board president, and she resigned saying that she had lost confidence in Trudeau and the handling of the SNC-Lavalin affair. National Post, Jane Philpott resigns from Trudeau's cabinet. She says she has lost confidence in handling of SNC-Lavalin affair. Philpott, there can be a cost to acting on one's principles, but there is a bigger cost to abandoning them. Ottawa, Treasury Board President Jane Philpott resigned Monday from the federal government, saying she's lost confidence in the way the Trudeau government has dealt with the SNC-Lavalin affair. Her resignation came just less than a month after former Attorney General Jodi Wilson Raybould resigned from the cabinet amid allegations that the Prime Minister's office improperly pressured her to stop a criminal prosecution of the Montreal engineering giant. A minister must always be prepared to defend other ministers publicly and must speak in support of the government and its policies, Philpott said in a resignation letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Given this convention and the current circumstances, it is untenable for me to continue to serve as a cabinet minister. Trudeau issued a terse statement accepting Philpott's resignation and thanking her for years of service to Canadians and her dedication. Okay, so this is an absolute bombshell to hit Trudeau. It basically confirms that Jodi Wilson Raybould was telling the truth, and the two wafflers, Gerald Butts and Michael Wernick, were just basically circling the wagons, shall we say. Okay, and of course this leads to another interesting situation in that they have removed themselves from cabinet, but they haven't removed themselves from caucus. Now, of course, the situation is that the Prime Minister cannot have two people in his caucus who basically come out and openly said that they do not support the government and they've lost their confidence. So we're going to see now, is Trudeau going to get rid of these two? Is he going to turn them into independents and kick them out of the caucus? Because I'm pretty certain that if he does that, it is going to send a shockwave. And of course we're in an election year. Okay, so this is critical. I think this is going to dog Trudeau through the entire year, and it is going to be very difficult for him to shake this off, because as a feminist, and basically saying that women experience things differently than men is absolutely outrageous. And I think this is why the media is all over it, because really Justin Trudeau has been wagging his finger and clucking his tongue at the rest of the citizens in a holier-than-thou kind of attitude, that they're perfect, with the perfectly balanced board and the inclusiveness of the situation, and being on top of global warming issues and women's issues and native issues and so on and so forth. And now to suddenly find out that really underneath that exterior of shine and gloss, there is just a regular old cheating politician behind them who will do anything to keep their seat in government. And of course one must remember that both of these very intelligent women are dyed-in-the-wool liberals. These are not newbies, these are not fresh kids on the block. They are to the core liberal. And so this is really a shocking event for Justin Trudeau. And Jane Philpott's resignation is basically teaching Trudeau what doing things differently is all about. And that means no corruption at the top. Now, do I think that we're ever going to completely eradicate corruption? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible to. But we can minimize it. And the way we change that is by getting rid of this sense of entitlement to the major players in government, because it's that sense of entitlement that allows them to disregard their fellow citizens and pay only lip service to their promises and actions and their behaviour. And what I think is interesting is, although the committee basically voted not to have Jodi Wilson Raybould back. I think they're going to bring that to the fore again. I think there'll be another motion to allow her to come back and rebut the testimony from Gerald Butts and Michael Wernick. Okay, so we will look forward to that and the ongoing saga. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video and some of the information herein. If you did, please like, subscribe and comment below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off. You take care now. See ya. Bye.